And when
hmm
you participate in most goddess worship, and I'm not in like the structured world of, say, Wiccan or anything like that, but in most goddess worship circles, they teach that the goddess comes down and holds your hand and you walk the road together. And praying to the goddess is the same way. You don't limit her. Okay,
hmm
don't limit her. Tell her what you're struggling with. And then just say, can you offer me a solution, please? And yes, sometimes
hmm
that solution's painful.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another call. So today we have a very interesting character and we have a very interesting topic, which we are going to kind of dive right into, more or less. But let me introduce you first. So, with us today is Lara McKusky, and she is a multifaceted professional who brings a very unique perspective to every project that she tackles. Beyond her incredible full marketing expertise, Lara is an accomplished professional writer, an emerging speaker, one who addresses topics including trauma recovery, resilience, ADHD coping strategies, and the reason that I have brought her on the show today, we're going to talk about goddess worship and select paganism, just everything in it and about it, right? So
Hmm.
it's through her very personal journey of stepping far away from what is the male ruled monotheism, we can say, of way of living to living a life more in following of the goddess worship. So, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this. It's so interesting to me, and I get very caught up in it. It aligns so well with the feminist thinking that I had already um, really kind of worked a lot on and done a lot of research over the years and learned a whole new vocabulary. I would say the inciting incident for me was getting divorced after 12 years of marriage. I'd gotten married very young, and I was a lifelong Catholic, a cradle Catholic, as they call us. And I am one of five children. I'm the second eldest. And so we had this big family. The Catholicism was all on my mother's side. My father did not come from a religious family at all. So he was like, you go to my mom, you know? And so she put us in Catholic school, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, even went to Catholic college. And surprisingly, the women's Catholic college that I went to in Maryland, which is now co-ed, sadly, but it was the last women's college in Maryland at the time. We really learned a lot about, like, I took a Women in the Ancient World class, and I
Oh,
took a Women in U.S. History class, and we talked a lot about the laws and how women were treated. And I remember my Women in U.S. History class, the professor literally had to explain to us like three times how the laws worked for adultery because we just were not absorbing the fact that in the 1800s and really into the early 1900s, that if a man had an affair, the woman, no matter her marital status, was always to blame, and she could actually go to jail for it.
oh,
He was
really?
married. It was astonishing. If she had an affair with a married man and she was also married, then her husband could like instantly divorce her because she had had an affair, no matter what he was doing. So we were just like, no, no, explain it again. If the woman,
Right.
we were not getting it. So that really kind of sparked this idea of looking at how women have been kind of treated and the cultural and societal norms for women. And I had gone through this really traumatic marriage and divorce and was stuck for a number of years in the court system, which just
hmm
re-traumatizes women. And I felt like I was just surrounded by male energy all the time, right? I have my ex who will not leave me alone. I've had a series of male judges. I'm going to church and it's a male priest and a male deacon, and then usually boy altar servers. Not every Catholic church observed the fact that the church had declared girls could also be altar servers. Some churches did
hmm
not accept that and utilize it. So you just, and then you're referring to God as He. And I just felt like I am so tired of all these men telling me what to do. And
Right.
I thought I'm living an hour away from my family, thanks to my abusive ex who has made moves to isolate me. And I have two sons and a daughter, and I'm either alone or I feel like I'm constantly around men. I was having trouble with male patrons at the library where I was working. It was all the time. And honestly, going through trauma, my mother would always say, oh, we're going to pray about it. We're going to pray to make changes in your life. And I just came to a point where I thought, okay, that's not really helping. Like I need action. I need action. Prayer is not action. I'm sure there are people that would completely disagree with me. Okay. But once I learned from a therapist that action cancels anxiety, which I have a lot of, I kind of carried that forward. It became this, if I felt stuck in life in any way, what action can I take to relieve some of my anxiety? And that just kind of carried forward into all sorts of, um, areas of my life. And I really began to be an active change maker. And so one day when I came home from Mass, where I had taken my knitting, and the priest had glared at me from the altar the entire Mass. And I thought, I think I'm just done here. I think I'm done. I'd had a bad interaction with my childhood parish priest who would not assist me financially, although I was in dire straits until he saw my collection envelope number and wanted to go check how much I had donated to the church before he would agree to help me. And I just was like, these are the people that I was told to lean on. And I'm still isolated. I'm struggling. I'm by myself. And frankly, praying feels like I'm banging my head against a brick wall because it feels like none of my prayers have been answered. And I got home that day and I Googled modern priestesses. How do you become a priestess? Are there modern priestesses? Are there women running churches? Like, what is happening on the female side of things here? And lo and behold, I'm finding all this amazing information. And I just dove right in. And I really haven't come up for air since then. I'm constantly learning new things. It was such a huge relief to find writers like Scott Cunningham, who talked about being a solo practitioner of the craft or utilizing spells and rituals. And here, I went to Mass all these years, and it's a very prescribed ritual, right? And people who are not Catholic complain like you're sitting, you're standing, you're kneeling, like what is
Right.
all this,
Right.
And here I'm now being told, like, no, you can write your own prayers. You can write your own spells. You can create your own rituals. And I was like, what? And it really appealed to my creativity. And I just, I now probably have 30 different decks of tarot cards. I have a huge collection of books about tarot, about herbalism. I took an herbalism apprenticeship that was a year long. Um, I have general sort of everyday witchcraft books and deep dives and, all kinds of things, really. Anything that strikes my fancy. Some are reference, some are definitely ones you want to read all the way through.
Hmm.
And I have now joined an online coven whose podcast I was actually following for quite a while. And then they started this online community. And it's been amazing. You just go in and you're like, this is who I am.
Right.
And they're
Right.
like, welcome,
Right.
and I'm like, it's okay that I don't practice the same way that you do. And they're like, no, we all practice differently. And we take from each other. And it's been so freeing. It feels like I'm in control of my faith. I'm in control of my interactions with the universe and the divine. And I
Hmm.
have done things to sort of seek out the divine, the goddesses really that I connect with and that I kind of call to when I'm in ritual or in prayer. And I just feel like things shift almost immediately when I do that. It is amazing the response that I feel doing this work instead of praying to the
Right.
male faceless God in the sky, right?
Right. Hold on.
So,
Let me
yes,
pause
yes,
you
jump in.
because there's so many things, and I don't want to lose people because there's some that they'll follow and they'll be like, okay, I get it. Like the tarot cards, stuff like that, people have already heard of and whatever. But when we talk
Sure.
about like the craft and we talk about spells, we might lose some of the people in the sense that there is a common knowledge thing, like a common, how do I even say this?
Is it a
Uh,
misconception
a
or is it a,
misconception. Thank
okay.
you. Yes, it's a misconception. And the reason is, and I know we're going to start diving deep into this now. And the reason is, I know for a lot of what centuries, they were burning
Mm-hmm.
witches at the stake, and
Absolutely.
anything that you did. And what do you relate to spells and incantations and witches?
Um,
So a lot of
it's
people have that in mind. So how did
yes,
you come? Because you came from, I am fed up with what I've learned and has it helped me? And I
yes.
absolutely wrote it down because I love that you said action cancels anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's a key takeaway for anybody on anything, because that really, really promotes like the you're taking action on it, right?
Right.
But then
Any
how,
little thing. Yes.
right? But then how, you already came from an open mind. How would you
Okay.
be able to explain to somebody that they're following with the conversation, but they
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard of the craft except, excuse me, maybe like the movie of like the
Sure.
witches?
Sure.
How do you explain what that is for them? Because there's different ways to approach it.
Sure. I think, you can't. Oh, there's a lot going on in my head right now. So first of all, a lot of people feel that any organized religion is cult-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have referred to the Catholic Church as cult-like. And you do the best you can. I feel like I've deprogrammed from a lot of that, but I still carried with me this idea of like ceremony and the idea of, speaking out into as a community. You're saying words together, you're responding together, you're singing together, you're putting energy out into the world and hoping or expecting for a response. And I carried a lot of that with me. And then
Mm-hmm.
once it sank in that I can create my faith walk in any way that I want, I was like, oh, well, then I'm bringing that with me. And so I started investigating on YouTube, pagan songs, what are they singing about? And a lot of them are about the Sabbats or our holy days, which most Christian holidays, again, I know people freak out about that, but it's true. Most Christian holidays are based on a calendar day that was already on the pagan calendar in order to easily transition people over.
Right.
Um, and I just started researching kind of metaphysical, new age. And again, the eclectic way of practicing is just taking what fits you, what suits you, what makes sense to you from a variety of places. And so for me, um, a spell is trying to influence the energy in your immediate area. Okay. Um, and people consider spells and actions that you take as a practicer of magic, that there's a spectrum and that you can be black, gray, or white. And people are trying to move away from those color labels because it sounds too
Mm-hmm.
much like race labels, and that's not good. But my overriding sense is, um, what goes around comes around.
Right.
Um, I don't need to send negativity out into the world, period, no matter who has hurt me or what is happening. So I don't like hex people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do what's considered like a negative or a chaos magic. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of theories around magic and how to practice it. And
Mm-hmm.
and you can find a branch that suits just about anybody. For me personally, if someone's hurting me, I'm more likely to put a protection spell around myself rather than lash out at them, right? Because it
Mm-hmm.
just generates more like anger and negativity and makes you feel yucky, makes me feel yucky
Mm-hmm.
anyway afterwards. And there are people that really embrace the full spectrum of
Right.
thinking and energy
Right.
work. And I consider it energy work. I try to incorporate guided meditation in. Um, I listen to a lot of ASMR on YouTube, which is sound-based, to relax my nervous system. I regularly thank the goddess, just a general goddess energy, anytime something good happens. Like if I, and as a neurodivergent, I'm constantly misplacing things. If I find something finally that I've been looking for a week, I'm always just like, thank you, goddess. Like I'm
Right.
always just trying to put the positive energy out there all the time. And it's a beautiful, I don't know, unicorns and rainbows and flowers kind of situation for me, but just know that because there are many ways to practice, you are going to encounter all kinds of people, and that witchcraft is not, this killed me when I first read it. I was like, that makes total sense. Witchcraft, ironically, is not related to Satan or the devil,
Oh
because
yeah.
those things are
Right.
Christian constructs,
Right.
and we don't believe in Christianity. We don't
Right.
follow Christianity, right?
Right.
So that's like not a thing. Most of us believe our power is innate, right?
Right.
It doesn't come from a supernatural source.
Right. And let me explain that because when I also heard that and I also made that click, it was like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because, so let me explain that real quick. They have said that the witchcraft is because of Satan and this and the devil.
Yep.
And what you just said, when we look into, and I'm not going to get into the whole scope of it because we're going to lose what we're actually going to talk about. But
Sure.
when we really do look at the Bible and the way that the Christianity faith was created and constructed,
Hmm.
Satan and the devil was a character that was made up at some point. It wasn't even there in the
Correct.
beginning.
Correct.
It came in, I don't even remember what year it was,
Yes.
but it came in at a certain year. So it's not like Genesis 1, first Old Testament, they were talking about the devil.
No,
The guy
no.
did not exist.
No,
Right.
that and purgatory. There's a number of things that are considered like canon law in the Catholic Church. And it's like, then you get to be an adult and you're like, wait a minute, some dude made this up in like the 1600s and they just like stuck it in there and then it was just part of everything. And it's
Yes.
like, yeah, yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened to
Yeah.
keep the
And
people in line. And,
exactly.
and if you think of it this way, okay, in the 1600s, between really the 1600s and like the 1850 maybe, there were ongoing witch trials all over the world, despite the fact that communication was so difficult, right? How is this happening all at the same time?
Right.
And it was carried by word of mouth. And it
Right.
was gifted, if you will, to different cultures who Englishmen or people from the American colonies would go and visit someone in Norway and be like, in our country, we burn women for doing that kind of stuff, and it was just like they were just spreading this negativity everywhere.
Right.
And it was
Right.
a control tactic, right? So the implication is not only do women not have their own power, they have to make a deal with the devil, which is evil, in order to get power.
Yes.
Ergo, women with power equals evil, right? And this underlying idea that purity culture springs out of this, because of course I was doing some research. I'm a library science grad student, and I was doing some research, just digging around a new database, and I stumbled across an art collection, and I was super excited, so I click on it, and they had a witch section, and I was like, oh, every single painting and sketch, the women were naked, they were dancing around fires, they were, consorting with the devil. They were flying through the air with and without brooms. That was like a really big
I
deal,
actually would love that to happen. You know
right?
how fast I could
Or
get everywhere
something.
if I could actually
To-
fly on my
I,
broom?
I don't need to do everything naked. Okay. Can I just, where are my clothes? I don't understand why that's definitely, what would be really sinful is if they were naked, and it was like, ooh, and that just took off because of course all these paintings and pictures are by men, predominantly by men.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's very interesting how that sprang out of culture, really,
Yeah.
as a means of trying to control women and imply that a woman with power is evil and she
Right.
shouldn't have power.
Right. And that kind of translates even to today's modern age,
Absolutely.
that in the culture that we live in and in the society that we live in, so modern and unique and all these things. And yet there's an underlying thing that if a woman has a lot of power in a corporation or in a this or that, she has to be doing something. She slept her way in. Like there's always
Absolutely.
this thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a totally
So
different subject.
that comes from, very quickly, the beauty myth and Betty Friedan and all these other women who discuss the fact that for women, power is in their beauty
Mm-hmm.
and in their ability for their beauty to hold a man who has money, which is what power is for men, right? So you look at Trump, for example,
Okay.
very unattractive, has netted many wives because he has money. That's
Right.
his power. Her
Huh.
power is that she was attractive enough to marry a billionaire,
Right.
which is why we fight so hard against aging in our country
Okay.
and why young women who are fertile um, are prized and valued, and why we have, I believe, this is just my opinion, but I feel like it makes total sense. This is why women, young women are, being trapped in crazy marriages with polygamists and all these different weird religions and, all these places where young girls they're trying to um, normalize having a 13-year-old wife,
Right.
and
Right.
we're not, most of us are not buying that, but there's
Right.
a whole section of our culture that does that.
Right.
And it's all about controlling women's power, which actually stems from goddess worship.
Right.
That
Right. So,
stems from, yes, our cultures from many thousands of years ago.
right. And that's the part that I actually invite people to listen to in their own way,
Hmm.
because there is so much information, and even now in books, in the library, in the internet. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing, okay, let me just research it and see what you find, because the goddess worship was the one that reigned for such a
Oh,
long
yes.
time, for
Tens of thousands of years.
exactly, and that's what I was gonna say, for
Mhm.
like an undescribable amount of thousands of years,
Yes. And this
which
is
is
supported by archaeological digs and other
yes,
information. Okay.
right. And there's so many things, which also leads into the, oh, that's why there's such a power struggle of eliminating any power that the women has, because we don't
Yes.
want to go there anymore. But
Yes.
I want to actually get to the conversation of goddess worship in a
Hmm.
different way,
Okay.
because I don't want everybody, and I love the fact that you said that for you it's been unicorns and pixies and like all these amazing things,
Yes.
because my experience, and especially this week,
Uh-oh.
has been the total opposite in
Oh,
a good way.
no.
But I want
Oh, okay.
people to, yeah, but I want people to understand it's not always unicorns and pixie dust and
No,
this
no.
flows, because
True. Very
it's
true.
it's I'm trying to keep my language clean. It's
Okay.
beeping horrible what I went through this week.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, and it's fine because I needed it. And that's the part that I want to say. So I'll ask you in a bit how people can start working with the goddess and
Mhm.
introducing that. But what I did this weekend is I finally came back into communion. I'm like doing all these things. I have a connection with the goddess, like the divine goddess, and then all the different fractals of her.
Mhm.
And this weekend, I was like, you know what? I've ignored you. And I know I've ignored you. And I've gotten into my humanness. And I get that. So whatever's actually like blocking me or help me, because the
Mhm.
power I know is in me. So I'm not asking her for help or whatever it
Right.
is. I'm not putting my power in their hands and let them do with it, which is one of the big constructs of the differences I find with God and goddesses.
Yes.
So I told her, them, whatever, help me, guide me.
Hmm.
Holy crap, they took me through hell.
Uh-oh. Not what
I
you're expecting,
was
huh?
I was cringed up in my sofa in fetal position for
Oh,
18 hours
oh
until I was
no.
finally out of it. And then I realized this click, that, oh, wow. And I finally found a deep-seated, rooted, very unconscious thing that
Okay.
was blocking me from the things I was asking for help with. So they
So,
did show me, they did guide me, but I
yes,
had
yes.
to break my own barriers of safety, I guess you would say, in such
Okay.
a horrible way that I was hating them.
That is called shadow work.
Yes.
Okay. Shadow work. It's very challenging. I personally have a ton of trauma in my adult life, and it is not recommended for people with deep trauma to do
Right.
shadow work. It can be very soul crushing unless you
Yeah.
have like a guide, a mentor, a priestess, someone to work with.
Right. Right.
But there are books out about doing shadow work, and it's exactly
Yeah.
that. It's breaking down your mental barriers and your biases and all of those things. Yes.
Right. So I wanted to talk about that because I do love the goddesses. I love what it brings. I love what it's done for people like me, for people like you, that we find a different path and we find our power. Because for
Hmm.
me, it's a way that it actually shows us our power. Be man, male or female. It really is an energy that shows us, hey, you are powerful. I'm here to like back you up, but you got
Hmm.
this. And it's
Yes.
not, come
Yes.
here, pray for me.
Yes, it's not. Okay, so someone explained it to me this way and I really latched onto it. In the monotheistic, let's say, circles, don't want to target anybody. In the monotheistic circles,
Ahem.
you tend to be a penitent, right? You're on your knees. You are abasing yourself. You are begging for assistance, right? And then that divine entity is supposed to judge you. You're constantly being judged, which, oh my God, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
You're judged, and then they decide whether or not to bestow what you're asking for onto you. And it's you start out as a kid and you're like, please God, give me a pony, and then you're taught like that's not the best way to pray. Please thank God first before you ask for things. And they have this manipulative, convoluted way of praying to try to
Hmm.
get what you want from this divine being. And when
Hmm.
you participate in most goddess worship, and I'm not in like the structured world of, say, Wiccan or anything like that, but in most goddess worship circles, they teach that the goddess comes down and holds your hand and you walk the road together. Okay. And that you can pray these beautiful open-ended prayers where you go, I'm just really struggling. Can you please help me with my finances? It's very broad. It's not, I need $500. Can I get a check by tomorrow? I just need help with my
And do
finances.
you direct deposit?
Right, right. Can you do that without fees in 24 hours? And and instead it's this much more like be open-hearted. It's not this closed in,
Right.
demanding, setting yourself up for disappointment kind of prayer. It is this open-ended, open-minded, help me with my finances or something better because you are seeing all. You know what my strengths and weaknesses are. And as they say, if you look back at your life, uh, you from 5 years ago, could you have imagined how you're leading your life now? And praying to the goddess is the same way. You don't limit her. Okay, don't
Hmm.
limit her. Tell her what you're struggling with. And then just say, can you offer me a solution, please? And yes, sometimes
Hmm.
that solution's painful. It really is. But usually when that happens, it's because it was necessary. You were holding yourself back. You were allowing somebody else to trample your boundaries, all kinds of something wasn't a good fit. And they're assisting you in any way, shape, or form. They're kind of chaotic that way. They will assist you. So don't have set expectations about how prayer is going to be received
Right.
or resolved or answered. But I also think it's beautiful in that way because you're working in a partnership. Um, people aren't telling you like you're not in control, the goddess is in control. Like nobody talks to you like that when you're
Right.
grieving or you're anything like that. It's definitely this is a partnership and she wants to open you up to the power you already have inside.
Yeah. And again, that's why I keep saying it's something I wanted to bring up because a pet peeve I have recently is the culture of let's work with the divine feminine and all you need is self-love and salt baths and flowers and massages. And you know what? I'm all for that. Hell yeah. Like,
Sure,
yes,
sure. Yeah, that's self-care.
it's self-care, but
That's
that's not the divine feminine. The
no,
divine
it's not.
feminine includes the chaos and
Yeah.
the
The
it's like
light
a
and the
heart.
dark.
Exactly. And it's like a loving mother because literally that's how
Yes.
I could explain it. It's like a loving mother who's like child, we have boundaries that you need to
Hmm.
like oversee and step over, or like the mama bird that just literally takes the little chick that was just born and like pushes him out. It's like, you can fly, go and fly,
Yep. Yep.
because she trusts the instincts. And it's just like the goddess with us. They know what we're capable of. It's just we that forget, but we need that severe push. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's severe. Like, I'm not going to say it's always going to be like this, but precisely that's what happened to me earlier this week. We're having this talk today. I
Hmm.
wanted to bring that up because there's such a difference in what a lot of people are talking about.
Yes. Yes. I
And
agree.
also with the shadow work. I mean, you'll find
Hmm.
shadow work prompts that are like so good, but so superficial
Mm.
that
Yeah. And
there's
shadow work is deep. Yeah.
and exactly, there's times that you just need to go, you don't know where. And then you start thinking of all this mythological stories, and you think of, what is it, Persephone?
Yes.
That
Persephone,
she,
who went to down into hell to be with Hades.
right. And you think of like all these stories, and then Inanna and all the seven things that she went
Hmm.
through. And, it's kind of like, okay, okay.
Well, and you saying even like with the Nana, there when you start researching goddesses, they all have multiple titles, right? They're like
Mm,
the goddess of childbirth and the goddess of war. And you're like,
yeah.
whoa, or in some cultures, the goddess of love is also the goddess of war. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you can pray to Athena for strategy, which is so stereotypically considered a men's realm, right? Strategy. And so there is a goddess for everything. There's a goddess for everyone. And I tend to I kind of stumbled upon Hecate, and I know people pronounce her name all different ways, but that's the way I first heard it, and that's kind of what I stick with. And and as I researched her, she is known as initially everything was the goddess of death, the goddess of the underworld, the goddess
Right.
actually part of Mount Olympus and helped Zeus fight the Titans and his father. And she was this ancient goddess that had come about before the gods of Olympus. And so she's actually been worshipped for many thousands of years. And Zeus granted her this kind of special dispensation. Everybody else from her generation of gods and goddesses had been wiped out. And he was like, no, no, you're good. You can hang out. And so she's been around for forever, and she is constantly changing. She's often known as the three-faced goddess, but
Mm-hmm.
not in the maiden mother crone way, in
Mm-hmm.
the past, present, future, in a sort of T-shaped intersection, Queen of the Crossroads sort of way. And
Mm-hmm.
as I dug deeper, I realized she also had other beautiful titles like the Light Bearer, the Torch Bearer, because she was given the task of lighting the way for the dead from the path that goes down into hell and leading them into a more a less hellish landscape, shall we say. She would get them through the gates of hell and into the more pleasant areas. And she's the one that, speaking of Persephone, she's the one that helped Persephone get away from Hades to spend some time with her mother because Hades
Mm-hmm.
couldn't maneuver through hell. And
Mm-hmm.
so she also has um this set of titles that is about being the strength in hard times, being the light coming up out of the darkness, not being afraid of the darkness. She is the mother of hounds, and typically women and witches are associated with cats. So it's just this very interesting thing, and I've been in forums where people are like, "I feel Hecate calling me, but I'm terrified because she is just so stern, and they say she will just really hurt you if you don't, you know, worship in just this way." And I thought, that's not how I found her at
Right.
all for myself.
Right.
And so you have to develop those things. And then when you feel like you have an issue or a problem or you need help, and she's looking at you going, it's not really my area. And then suddenly you're branching out, right? And you're seeking, oh, well, who is the goddess of blah, blah, blah? And you're
Right.
pulling tarot cards and you're Googling, and you find other people, and your personal pantheon grows.
Right. Okay, that personal pantheon. I love that you said that because it's true. It's because I have also heard of like different people are like, oh my God, she's scary. Or if
Hmm.
you're gonna do this, be careful because she's gonna, and
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
if we relate it to people as well,
Hmm.
yeah, different people know you from a different area and a different energy. And if you piss me off, you're going to get a different side of me
That's right.
than
That's
if you
right.
don't. So it's like, I mean, is she really
Absolutely.
that, or did somebody trigger her? And I get that.
Right, right. Because she's also, all the Greek gods and goddesses were like pairing off and cheating on each other and going away with humans and having a million children. And she was always her own person. They're all in like shiny gold clothes and silky gowns. And here she comes in, a black cloak with a torch and three black dogs following her. And they're like, whoa, she's very goth. And didn't really fit in with the rest of the pantheon. But I just find her, yes, to be stern and to definitely say things to me in meditation that are along the lines of, girl, you got yourself into this and I'll help you get out, but it's not going to be fun or pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you got to learn a lesson here.
Right.
I can see you need some assistance and I will help you, but you got to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mind that. I mean, we all make mistakes. We all need help sometimes, and sometimes it's very messy getting out of situations. Um, but I also love and embrace the fact that she is like, why would I be scared of the dark? I'm in the dark. Maybe you should be scared of me. And
Right.
there's so much in our culture about, I've been in two abusive situations, and it got me to thinking, like, we're trained to be afraid of the anger of men. No one ever talks about the anger of women, and that is a power. Okay. And that typically when you feel angry, it's because someone else has stepped over your boundary
Right.
and you're like, get out. And you can
Mm-hmm.
respond very viscerally to that. You cannot really understand why you're upset initially. But shame is when you step over someone else's boundary. Anger is when someone steps over your boundary. In my experience, that's the relationship between the two. But it's nice having that goddess that you're like, okay, I'm gonna need a protection bubble because this Ahu over here is really ticking me off, and she is right there, man. She is right there. Doesn't mess.
Right. Right. No, and it's so true because um example, for our children, we say we would do whatever. And a mother
Uh,
literally, there's been moments that have been like registered of ladies like picking up a freaking car because the
right.
child is caught underneath. I mean, things out of, so yeah, what I loved, I applauded because it's
Hmm.
true.
Hmm.
We have been told that a man's anger is this, but yes, so is mine because I can definitely
That's right.
feel that, you know. And I remember
Yes.
when my daughter was small, we got divorced when she was really young. He remarried, and I have no problem even to this day of that relationship that she developed with my daughter. But even when she was small, I told him and the new wife, look, I have no issue. If you love and she loves my daughter, I'm honored. Like, thank you for loving my kid. But if either one of you crosses the line,
That's right.
there will be a different thing. And that's exactly it. It's like, don't look for me. You know, like there is that thing. But then let's get back to what you were talking about the personal pantheon,
Yes.
because I think that's something, and maybe it's me because of my growing up seeing it in a different way and now looking at it.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, they always used to tell me, so I grew up in a very seeing very God, how do I translate this? So they would always tell us that there was a African, a gypsy, an Indian,
Mm.
I don't know. For some reason, I was always told like everybody has like I think like one of each race. I'm not like for me to say it now. As I grew up, I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like, you know, I
Right.
still don't know where that came from, but that's what they used to tell me. But I will say that, like we're talking about the goddesses, I do think that we each have a connection, if you will, to
Mm.
certain myths or entities or whatever. So when I
Yes.
talk about
Yes.
angels, everybody's like, so what angel do I call? And at the beginning, I was very much like, well, what do you need? Do you need communications? You need this, and it's this one, it's it. And then I was like, just call the angel that can help you with that. Like,
Yes,
or
yes,
talk to your angel. Like, you have
yes,
your own connection. And I think with the goddesses, it's kind of the same thing.
yes.
You don't actually have to look up. It's cool. I'm not saying it isn't. But
Sure,
you said
yeah.
Athena with the wisdom.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if she's, it's like a math teacher. If I'm struggling in math, shit, I'll look for a math teacher.
Hmm.
So yes, but at the same time, it's kind of like I've had my own pick and selection of what goddesses and angels are part of my team.
Yes.
And then when I want to fire them, because I have quite several times, and then
Hmm.
I kind of be like, I'm sorry for what I said. Could you like get back here? And I feel them again, and they're just there. Like, we didn't go anywhere. We just gave you space. Like,
Uh, to me, this speaks to intuition and affinities that we have. And I mean, starting in the 1400s, there were people out there studying, astrology, astronomy. They're looking at the positions of the planet to the heavenly bodies, and they're trying to make connections between heavenly body events and things going on Earth, right? And they're just trying to make things make sense. And um, tarot cards started out as a game, really.
a
And then it
card
kind of,
game.
yeah, then it like morphed into a
Hmm.
fortune telling thing, and often considered, at least by the Catholics, as kind of like an evil thing to do, right? You're not supposed to be touching those. And then you had the Rider-Waite Smith deck, and someone is now attributing psychological archetypes to the deck. And I don't treat it as a fortune telling thing. I treat it as like a counseling session.
Same.
And that suits me a lot better, and it flows a lot easier to do
Mhm.
that. And again, like I think because I was just raised in this like religious structure, I was doing that. I was like, oh, okay, well, there's saints and there's angels, and it's what do you need? Like you got to call on the right person. And I was
Right.
doing kind of the same thing, right? They're like dedicated to certain things. And then somebody said, and I think it was in a book, actually, I read so many witchcraft related books, and somebody said, follow your instincts. And like the
Mhm.
entire spell they had laid out was like, this is a money spell. This is what I recommend. A green candle, whatever color calls to you. And then it was like, pray to so and so, whoever calls to you. And it was just this like, oh, we really do have total flexibility here. And
Yeah.
so I would do the same thing. Like, my neurodivergent brain wants everything to like be matchy matchy. And I'm like, okay, this is the incense that goes with the essential oil, that goes with the crystal, that goes with, and I feel like that makes things a little more energized, and it brings all the similar type energies together to really give you a boost for whatever you're doing your spell or ritual for. But ultimately, they would all say like, unless you're digging through your incense box and something else catches your nose, like go with your instinct, right?
Right.
Normally I wouldn't pray to Hecate for XYZ, but I just feel like today I need to talk to her,
Right.
and just follow your instincts. And for me, that's incredibly personal because part of the abuse that I've gone through is um, gaslighting and making you second guess and doubt your own judgment, right?
Hmm.
And so you come out of those relationships feeling totally crazy. And every
Hmm.
woman I've talked to who's been in this kind of relationship says this, I thought I was crazy too until I got a therapist. And their abuse is crazy making, right? So to go into something that's saying, no, no, come on, come out of your shell, use that instinct. What's your first urge? You picked up that one incense and then you put it down and picked up the one that I recommended. What was that other one you picked up? And you
Right.
start learning to trust yourself again, which I think is such a beautiful gift from from a faith, from a divine relationship, is the encouragement that like, no, no, you have good instincts. Go with
And
your judgment.
right. And we as a society, like even religion and all of this aside, we have been told what to do,
Oh yeah.
to trust our instincts, and nobody actually tell us what to do. Feels scary.
Yeah.
Because it's
It's
like,
like
am I doing
someone's
this
just,
right? Am I doing this wrong?
that's right. Right. Because we're also told there is a right way to do things.
Yes.
And
Right.
the only right way to do things when you are figuring out who you are in your faith walk, the only right way to do things is to try things, to follow your gut instinct, to redevelop that. Women are, stereotypically a lot of times described as being intuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got men who believe in that, who are like, look, she said we can't go today because it doesn't feel right, and like we are not going today. But then other men are like, women's intuition, whatever, and they
Mm-hmm.
really degrade it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that because of our position in our culture of often having to look out for men's anger, for dangerous environments, situations, and we're constantly told we are responsible for our own safety because a man in your environment during a situation where you feel unsafe, you then have to judge whether or not he's a safe one who's going to help protect you or if he's going to be the aggressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So generally speaking, like maybe don't trust the dudes in the room. You need to be aware that you have to be responsible for your own safety. And I think in a warped way, that is one way that we develop intuition in our culture is by assessing situations and making snap judgments, assessing what's best for our children, which of course there's no parent manual. So all of that is instinctive and what the heck am I doing and trying things out. So I just feel like it's been such a wonderful thing that I've strengthened my judgment, my belief,
Mm-hmm.
my judgment. Um, and I have just been wildly charting my own path. And it's hard. That is not
Congrats.
an easy path. It's not easy.
Exactly. And congrats. Because
Well, thank you.
and it's exactly that. It's not easy, but it's so worth it.
It is.
And
I
it's
agree.
so empowering
It is.
to realize that, oh my God, I did this, or I trusted myself and I made this step and I made this progress, but it feels
Mhm.
this big.
Right. Suddenly you look back and
Mm-hmm.
thought you were taking tiny steps, and then you realize, oh crap, I've actually made 2,000 tiny steps,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so much further along than I thought I was going to be when I looked back.
Right.
And, time is weird that way, and paths are weird that way. And um initially my driving force was I need to be a good example for my kids. I need to be a healthy example for my kids. I want my kids to see me working hard and making a difference in our lives. I want my kids to see me following my dreams, even though it's been a struggle. And all the work I was doing was like not even for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was, with my kids in mind. But that's what I needed to encourage me along. That
Right.
was the boost that I needed because I was so depressed and downtrodden after everything I'd been through that I didn't have the energy or the will to do it for myself.
Right.
So, it's definitely rewarding, but not everybody in your life is going to understand what the heck you're doing. Um, you may feel pressure from family to stop what you're doing, to go back to what they knew of you and how you used to function.
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you that they're praying for you to go back to church, and you just go, okay. And it's you get, I mean, I just lost my job 2 weeks ago, and at that job, I had my supervisor who regularly talked about God and church in a work meeting, flat out ask me if I was a Christian. And it's just like, are you going to treat me differently if I'm honest? So, you learn like who you can reveal that to, who you got to kind of keep it on the down low, what's
Right.
appropriate. Even contemplating what I wear, am I going to wear the t-shirt that has crescent moons and stars and is clearly very witchy today? Or is some rando white dude going to make some snide comment about whether or not I'm a witch? So you gotta, it's not an easy path to walk. It's really not. And the pendulum has swung many times on treating women poorly based on their own belief systems. Lately, they seem to be embracing the witch. There are groups of people that have very openly talked about getting together to, hex or bind some of our politicians. Um,
Oh,
yes, and that
I did
happened
not.
there. Then that happened in the 70s too. There was a whole group of women that was associating being a witch with being strong and independent and uncontrollable. So it has become a political symbol, and I would say the last, say, 50 years, which is
Right,
pretty amazing. But it can be
right,
scary too. In the wrong environment, that can be very scary. Not
right.
easy.
And I think the stronger you are in your own belief and in your own
Mm,
settings, the
yes.
less it's gonna affect you what other people say. But until
Yes.
you don't have that safe
Mm-hmm.
zone of nothing's gonna hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree. Like I love all the like when you said the witchy shirts, I'm like, I would wear them all the time. I love them. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally
Mm-hmm.
love them.
Same.
But you're right in the sense of people kind of do like for me, people kind of look at me and I'm like, oh, they're loving my shirt. Cause that's all I care. If they're not, I don't
I
give a
look, I live in a county that is awash in red. Okay. We are like a blue dot. And I really do feel like you have to be careful. People will make assumptions,
right.
and be
Right,
like,
right,
that
right.
Trump, he's amazing. Yeah, am I right? And you're just going, oh my God, don't say it. He might have a gun. Everybody here has a gun. It's just,
Right.
you have to be very cognizant of where you are.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I'm glad that you said that because it's true. It's like I'm not in
Mhm.
anywhere near that. Like literally, and I laugh because I always say I live in my own little world. And in my
Mhm.
own little world, it's pixie dust when
That's right.
when the
Yes.
goddesses aren't throwing me down for me to fly by myself.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, no, usually. So we are running out of time. I can keep
Yep.
talking to you forever. Where do people connect with you? Where can they reach out to learn more to help them? Like, because I do think that these conversations help, especially the women that are kind of like, okay, I've heard of all this. There's something different. Maybe I'm not full blown going into this priestess thing because I don't know what it is, but you look like a cool person. How can I ask you? So, where do people reach out to you?
Sure. So I have a website that's just my name, laramckusky.com, and it's LARAMCKUSKY.com. And I have a variety of businesses. I'm a writer, I'm a marketer and a business consultant. You'll see all kinds of stuff on there. And you can reach out through my contact form. It really doesn't matter what the topic is. You can find me searching Lara McKusky just about any social media platform. My handle is my name, and you can reach out and ask me anything. I love teaching and talking to people, and that would be great.
Awesome. As always, I'll put everything in the show notes. Laura, thank you so much for the conversation, for being so open, for being so vulnerable.
Sure.
Definitely kudos to you. Um, because I know your story, I know what you went through, and I
Hmm.
want people to understand that yes, there could be a very difficult and hard past, but there is hope. There is a future. There is something
Absolutely.
that you can do. So I
Yes.
love that you shared what you did, and thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and talking to you. It's a great, interesting conversation. I love it. Anytime, anytime.
I know, and you and I will stay in contact.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching until the end. My question to you is, what is the one thing that you have learned from today's video that you can apply exactly today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go catch our next video.